guys, this is Rick coming at you with Weed to No Basis, the podcast for all things cannabis business related. Are you an entrepreneur? Have something you wanted to create, something you wanted to bring to life in the cannabis industry? Maybe you've always wanted to partake in one of the biggest industries in modern day history. This is the podcast to listen to.
Hi everybody, I'm the Director of Marketing at Liquid Web. So just real quick about me, I've done tech marketing for like over 10 years at a bunch of different types of companies. About a little over a year ago, I came across the CBD space. We were acquiring some customers from Shopify in particular who were getting kicked off. And so they were getting kicked off. They were coming over to us and they were asking our sales folks if we're CBD friendly, and two, if we had any merchant processors that we could refer them to. So that's kind of where the light bulb went off in my head, and it was kind of like, oh, okay, there's a pain there, something that we can take care of. And I reached out to Rick Martinez, who's one of the organizers here, and I'm like, hey, is this really a pain point? You know, I know you're in the CBD cannabis space now, and Rick told me yeah, this is the biggest pain that we have. Do you have a solution for it? So I was like, okay, well, hold on, let me see what I can do and get put together. So if you go talk to all these vendors around here, 99.9% of them are going to tell you that they've had problems processing transactions online. And that's where we try to help brands out with. So now I go to shows like this. There's a CBD Expo tour too that I go to. I speak quite a bit at. We just wrapped up the first cannabis track for San Antonio Startup Week this week. So it's myself, Rick, Shada right here, who's going to be speaking later today as well. But we're just trying to spread the word about just the education, the pitfalls, the things to avoid when you're starting up your CBD brand, and also even if you're already established in it too. There's still things that you have to watch out for. The three kind of steps or hurdles that you're going to have to do if you're going to get set up, start selling CBD online. So we'll start with step number one. So step one is actually just opening up a business bank account. A lot of people don't realize when they're going to get into it that you just can't go into Bank of America, you can't go into Chase, you can't go to Frost Bank and say hey, I'm going to open up a brick and mortar or an online store, or I have a CBD business. They're going to tell you all right, the exit's over there, right? They're not going to work with you there. Some of the smaller kind of regional banks will. So there's it's like SunTrust Bank. Your smaller local kind of credit unions as well are CBD friendly. And in August of this year, the NCUA, the National Credit Union Administration, they sent out a letter of guidance to all credit unions in the U.S. saying that they're encouraging the credit union branches to be open to hemp-based businesses for business accounts as well as loans as well. So that's nice that that's happening. So I would encourage you, if you're looking to get started up, you should just take a look at your local credit union. I haven't talked to any of them here in San Antonio, but chances are they're going to be a lot more friendly there. And then if you want to do a bank, like a traditional bank, just that smaller one, the ones that don't have a big board of directors and things people have to answer to. So that's step one. And then step two is then getting the merchant account. So this is separate from the bank account. This is what allows you to process credit card transactions online, which is, again, the biggest problem. So if you guys don't know, and I won't, again, with the shortness on time, but with the farm bill that passed recently, or not recently, in 2018, it didn't completely legalize CBD and CBD sales. So there's still a lot of gray area. There's still regulations and rules that we're waiting for from the FDA and the Department of Agriculture too. That legal kind of limbo, that gray area, makes the CBD space kind of what's considered high risk. You're a high risk merchant. So when you're a high risk merchant, that means that if you were selling T-shirts online, let's say through Shopify or wherever, you're probably going to be paying 2.9% per transaction online plus 30 cents. When you sell CBD, it could be I believe now it's as low as 4.3%, and it can go up to 6% and above plus 30 cents per transaction. There might be a reserve. They're not always accepting of CBD startups if you haven't had any previous processing history. So that's where we come in. So we have, it's opened up a little bit more now. I would say historically there was a company called Elevon who was just approving everybody left and right for, if you're a CBD startup, they were pricing really low, like you were selling T-shirts, 2.9%, but they ended up signing up so many people they couldn't kind of like keep track of all the merchants and what their merchants were selling. So some merchants then were selling things that they kind of weren't supposed to, in terms of like kratom and some of these other supplements that they're not supposed to. So they went ahead and pulled the plug out from like everybody, and it caused a huge disruption in the space. And then other kind of domestic banks pulled out as well for that. And then you pretty much, the only option if you were a startup was you had to offshore. There's a company called T1 Payments out of the UK, and you literally had to set up an entity, a business entity in the UK, in order to do the credit card transactions processing. But then there's limitations to that. You couldn't take MasterCard. It was a higher rate. Your customers who were using their cards, if they had some kind of like fraud detection, like based on location, it would be subject to like higher rates of decline. So like they're here in the U.S., they're trying to buy on a website that looks like it's in the U.S., and then it pings to a UK, processing thing over here. It's going to be like, well, you're not in the UK. It'll decline. So that was one of the pains there as well. So again, that's kind of where we come in now in terms of things have opened up a little bit in terms of domestic banks opening up. So now there is about 3 or 4 that I know of from my partners at work that are accepting of CBD startups. The only kind of limitations that you might have is that you might not be able to sell flower or vape products, CBD vape products, anything that's smokable. That's still kind of on the iffy, just kind of depends by the bank and the merchant partner that you're working with. So that's something you kind of need to consider. If you're doing it in store, so if you're going to have a brick and mortar shop, you shouldn't have a problem, or you shouldn't have as big of a problem with that. But just something to consider as you're starting up your business. So step 3 then this is kind of where a lot of brands that I talk to don't spend a lot of time on thinking about it, and this is actually probably me coming from the tech background, right? This is probably the biggest decision that you're going to make, and if you make the wrong step here, it can cost you a lot in the longer run. So choosing an e-commerce platform. This is like your website, your store, and there's kind of 2 paths that you can take. So one is like what's called like software as a service, or SaaS, which is like your Shopify, your BigCommerce, those and Wix. I was very surprised of the number of brands that set up on Wix, but those types make it really easy. They make it really turnkey, where you can 6 steps and you can get a store online, you can get your products online really quickly. The pros and cons, like the con of like a Shopify is that they make it really simple. But if you're a CBD shop, you have to use, and they're CBD friendly now, like they've put something out recently where they say they will work with CBD brands, but you still have to use an external merchant processor. So if you're on their like $29 plan, for example, if you look kind of at the fine print, so like say you find your external merchant that is, let's say 5%. On the beginner plan, Shopify, if you're using an external merchant, they add on 2% on top of that. So then now it's 7% plus 30 cents per transaction. So it's not $29 anymore. It's going to be $29 plus 2% of whatever you sell. But then as you get larger and larger, they're going to take up a larger chunk of your sales. And you can move up plans with them too. So they have that small one. They have a $99 one. Then they have a $249 one. Their cut gets a little bit smaller as you go up. But then if you get even larger than that $249 a month plan, the next one is $2,499 a month. And so that's a humongous expense that you're going to have to pay monthly that some people don't consider. The other piece too is that with those SaaS-based platforms is that that look and feel, that theme, that's their code. That's not yours. So your product data, your images, your product descriptions, and your customer data, that's yours, but the look and feel of your site is theirs. So if you're not happy with support, if there's some extra features that you've added onto your store with them that slow your store down significantly, there's nothing you can do, right? So if you're unhappy with it and you want to say, you know what, I want to change to a different provider, different platform, you're going to have to kind of either pay an agency or like a web developer to like basically rebuild your store if you want the same look and feel. And that's around based on how many products and that you have, it could be somewhere around $4,000 or $5,000 just to replatform. And that's not like a charge from us or anything like that. It's from just an external agency to do that. So A lot of brands kind of don't, as they get into it, especially with like the Squarespace or the Wix or even the Shopify, like they don't realize that later on down the line, it's like, I'm getting bigger, but I need a better performing store. It's a humongous headache that they have to deal with. And another disruption. The other kind of platform to consider is open source. So that's where kind of we come along to, or we say, we have like WordPress or WooCommerce offering. The great thing about it is just customization, right? So you can choose themes, you can have, it has complete customizability. And the other big benefit is that it's your code, right? So the site, the store, the look, the feel, everything is yours. So if, say, you start off at like, you're hosting a store at like a WordPress store at GoDaddy or a WooCommerce store at GoDaddy, and you're paying like a $5 a month shared hosting plan or something like that. But as you're picking up business, you're on a shared server with a bunch of other people, and your store could be the performance can go down. And it's not because of WooCommerce, it's just because you're stuffed on a box with a bunch of other people. And say you're unhappy with that, you want an improvement. If you wanted to like bring that over to us or a different hosting provider, the beauty of open source is that the migration is a piece of cake. So it's literally like a plugin that you can install at your new hosting plan, and you can port over look, feel, data. There's no anything that's technical you can't do. It's really simple, and you can move that store over in just a couple of hours from one to the other, and then you're ready to rock and roll. So that's kind of like, and then there's also other features too, like WordPress is built for SEO, and that's the key thing about it compared to like a Shopify. But portability is just fantastic. Now that let's say you've walked through that process, right? So you got your business bank account, you have your merchant account, you have the e-commerce platform, that store that you have. It's like, okay, so now it's built. So people are just going to come to your store, right? Like your online store, just because of it? No. So I like to use that quote where it's like, if you build it, they'll come, like, right? So driving traffic to your store isn't so easy. So if you guys are also getting into it as well, in terms of that high-risk piece in the beginning from getting the bank account, that stuff, it applies to the digital marketing piece as well. So you can't come in, you can't just buy market space like you could if you were doing some other kind of consumer brand. So you're restricted on the major platforms like Google, Facebook, Instagram. One of the things that have opened up just recently, and it's still kind of a little bit difficult to do, but if you sell CBD topicals, you can do paid Facebook, Instagram ads. They're allowing that now, but again, it's kind of difficult to get through. If you have like a rep that you can talk to at Facebook, it can probably get that pushed through. But it allows you to, then you can do some advertising there. You can do retargeting there with Facebook. And then the only thing is, like, when you run those ads for your topicals, you can't use the words like CBD. You can use words like infused. You can't mention CBD, and then on your ad, when people click on it, it links out to a landing page or a splash page that has your topical product. That's those topical products are the only things that you can show. So like you can't lead in with topicals and then like show them your whole portfolio of like oils and stuff like that. They won't allow that, and they'll find out. So, and then they might actually like shut down your brand page or something like that if they catch you doing that. The other one that was on there was blip billboards. That's BLIP. So if you're driving around town and hear other cities across the U.S., there's digital billboards that you see, right? So Blip has a network of CBD-friendly billboard operators. So, and they make it really simple for you to do, where it's pretty much self-service, and they'll help you too with design as well if you need that. But you can choose the locations of the billboards you'd like them to do. The great thing with them, there's no minimum budget, so you can do a campaign for as little as like $50, and it's per impressions. And it's also like by the time of day that you're doing it. So they have like off-peak, on-peak, so it costs a little bit more to do the on-peak stuff, but it's something you can try out. So if you have like a brick and mortar shop, you can you're able to see on a map like which kind of billboards are around available. And I would just say, like, obviously choose the high traffic times. Like, I don't think a CBD ad at 3 a.m. as somebody's driving is going to be beneficial. But the other thing too is just like if you happen to go down that route, is just have a special like URL for just that ad. So that's how you can kind of like get the measure, like how impactful was that that billboard, and then do I want to go ahead and put some more money into that in the future. Some ways to drive traffic in SEO is one is like if you're trying to establish your brand, right? You want to prove that you're a leader, you're an expert, you have a story, right, as to why. So something what I tell brands is to write about CBD articles, right? So if you see an article like on Forbes or some highly trafficked, just non-CBD site, right? Like find out who the author is, right? Usually they have a link to who they are and how to contact them. Get their contact info, email them, try to get in touch with them, and then tell them who you are and that, hey, if you need a quote for your next article that you're writing about CBD, I'd be happy to provide my input into there. That would be fantastic in terms of like if it is like a Forbes.com, they write an article on there. That's a highly trafficked site, and usually when they quote you, they're going to link back to your website, to your brand there. So it's a great way to do it. There's other kind of niche communities like Quora and other types of things where you can provide answers to questions that people may have around CBD. And in your answers, just again, kind of like you introduce yourself, you can link to yourself there as well, but just provide value, right? And that you prove people that you're the expert. The next slide that I have was about email marketing, right? So that's with the restrictions that you have about the marketing, the online marketing piece. And if you just have the online store, even if you have a brick and mortar store too, you want to be able to, build that relationship with them. So if it's on your website, there's like some simple tools. One of them I had on there was called like Opt-in Monster. It's a simple plugin that you can put in as people come to your site. There's a little box that comes up and it's like, hey, if you give us your email address, we'll give you like 15% off your first, or whatever you want to do, 15% off your first purchase. But that email kind of, I won't say newsletter kind of thing is great for you to be able to continuously market to those people, whether they're prospects or your existing customers. And the other great thing too is there's additional tools that like, I don't want to plug us, but that we offer that allow you to do like customer segmentation, customer analytics. So as people are buying from you, you get to really know who they are. The thing with online is that it's zeros and ones, right? So it's just like you see a sale, it's numbers on the back end that you see. You don't know who this person really is, versus brick and mortar shop where you get to like get the body language and get to understand them and get their story. But with some of the analytics pieces, you can understand like if it's male, female, who buys with a coupon, who doesn't buy with a coupon, who are my best customers, and then if it's some kind of promo, it knows not to send a coupon to the folks who normally buy full price kind of thing. So there's a lot of really interesting things you can do, like just e-commerce wise, and it all ties back to the email. And the other part too is for cart abandonment as well. So people, I'm sure you guys have all seen it before, where people, like you go to a store, maybe you're gonna buy shoes, right? You put some things in your cart, you leave, and then a little bit, like a couple hours later, you get an email saying like, hey, we noticed you left this in your cart. If you come back, here's like 10% off, or some kind of CTA, and it's just a simple click, and then you're ready to buy. That's capable as well within like WordPress or WooCommerce as well. The great thing about it too is that it's called Jilt, and that comes with like some campaigns already baked in there, and all you have to do is just kind of like put in what the promos that you want there, so you're not setting it up from scratch kind of a thing. So yeah, so I think I might be out of time already. So I'm at that booth right here in the back of Liquid Web. If you guys have any additional questions, I'd be happy to answer. Again, I can go on for hours and hours and hours about this. So I hope this was of value to you. That's actually my phone number there, and I'm on Instagram at Javi Cana. And yeah, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for listening.